Good morning, this is David Rizzo with Rogers Gardens. Thank you for joining me today. Today I'm going to go over October in the garden. So it's the checklist for October. This is a really big month because we're coming out of summer. We've had a really hot summer the last part, and now we're going to start cooling down. Even though we're still going to be a little warm in the day, high 70s, maybe low to mid 80s. We're cooling down at night, and you always see with fall it starts getting more damper at night. Damp mornings, damp nights. So that's really good. So I'm going to go through, and then we're going to save all the questions for last. So if you guys have any questions, hold on to them to the end. But I'm going to go through vegetables. I'm going to go through little herbs and flowers and just everything, and then I'll talk about fertilizers and roses and some other perennials and a little bit about seed starting. And so the first thing I'm going to talk about is we're pretty much finished with a lot of the summer vegetables, and so now they're going to start winding down. You'll get your fruit to ripen in the next few weeks, but as we go into middle of this month, later into October, now's the time to start putting in your broccoli, your cauliflower, your kale, your cabbage. Lettuce I will wait for end of the month too. And spinach and all the microgreens and all that stuff. So we're on that transition. So I got some nice color packs. So this is Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts are really good right now. You can put these in. Brussels are really late, so you really got to get them in early, and sometimes you won't get Brussels sprouts until probably into like almost summer. So that's the one thing. But when you do plant them farther apart and put them in the back of the garden, and definitely fertilize them. Any of the bigger cruciferous family plants, they're going to need more food. So that's the only thing that I'll feed pretty good for the winter vegetables. And so I got some good cauliflower right now that's coming in. I like to get the color packs because I'll pinch one out and show you. Yeah, these are nice. They're not root bound yet, so I like to put them a little far apart. So I'll put them about 16 to 18 inches apart. I know most labels will say 24 to 36 inches. That's really far. So I like to sort of crowd my broccoli and cauliflower a little bit, and even the kale. So, but this is just the cauliflower. So 16 to 18 inches. Feed it good. With this family of plants, you really do got to watch the caterpillars. If the caterpillars get really bad, I'll use one of the sprays like the spinosad. Let me see. I don't want the lid to come off this. But this is an organic spray that's good for caterpillars. So if you start seeing them really get chewed up by the loopers, definitely spray about every 2-3 weeks. So you got your cauliflower right now that I'm planting. I love chard. So the Swiss chard, this is bright light. So this is a good one that I'm going to be planting right now. Not as heavy a feeder, but still I'll put them a little farther apart because chard gets big. So 16 to 18. Celery too. Right now you have celery. So this is tango celery. This is one of my favorite celeries. What I do different with celery, I don't wait for it to go all the way to the end and head up. I just start clipping the shoots and using the little tender shoots fresh. So I love using the celery, but I don't wait for it to head up all the way. That takes about 95 to 100 days. So I keep clipping them. You got all your kale, like red Russian kale is a good one. I want, like the lacinato, the dinosaur kale I put in right now. You got the traditional blue, the blue kale. So the blue kale is really good. And then another thing with that, watch them for caterpillars. Another thing that I'll start putting in the next couple weeks are my leafy greens. So like the spinach is really good. You can do spinach from plants or seeds. I like to direct sow the seeds too. I didn't grab any lettuce though, and lettuce is a big one that I'll start planting in the next few weeks. So I do the romaine lettuce. I actually brought seeds. Let me just separate them really quick. Let's see. So yeah, so I like to buy the big packs of seeds. This is by Botanical Interest. This is the baby spinach. So I direct sow that in my garden. This is the large romaine, the Cos romaine that I like. I direct sow that. One of my favorite, let's see if I brought it. One of my favorites, and I don't think I did. It's a lettuce mix called Gourmet Mix, and Gourmet Mix has all your leaf lettuces in there. I like a lot of the leaf lettuces, but here's another one like this, the little mescaline. But with going back to the leaf lettuces, I always will put a little bit more spinach in there, and I plant the seeds really thick, and I just take my scissors and just keep harvesting. And then once they're done, after 3 months, I'll dig them all out. I'll put a little bit of Malibu compost back in there, and then I'll really just sow again. You know, you can do multiple sowings through the winter, so that's important. With peas though, I will wait. Peas like it cooler, so the sugar snaps and the snow peas, and all those, and the shelling peas, I wait until we go more into November. So hold off on those, and you can start doing. Another one that I direct sow a lot too is a lot of the Chinese cabbage, like the Napa cabbage, the bok choy, the pak choy, the tatsoi, the mizoon, all those. I found that if I try to plant them in these packs, they bolt really easy. So again, late this month, all of these just direct seeding. And even with your carrots, your different varieties of carrots, like the Royal Chutneys, your little 8-ball carrots, direct sow them right in the garden. I don't buy transplants of carrots. They go right into the garden. And what I do usually with the carrots, and let me get even with the beets, I like to go about a foot away from each other, and I do little mini rows, and I'll make a little trench with my finger, about a 1/2 inch, little tiny rows, and I'll sprinkle the carrot seeds or the beet seeds. I'll cover it up and I'll water them really good. So that's a trick when you're doing a lot of your root crops, whether it's radishes, beets, or carrots. Don't do the seeds really deep, because these seeds are tiny. These seeds are so small. If you put them this deep, they'll rot before they germinate and grow to the surface. So put them shallow, about a 1/2 inch, or even as less as a 1/16 of an inch. Another one that I like to do is, I love the baby greens. So I like these big packs of some of the microgreens, and this is red Russian kale, the baby, but this is still going to grow into the larger size, but I like to let them grow up. This is basically microgreens in your garden, where a lot of people I know like to do microgreens in their house, but there's a lot of growers that will grow them right in the garden, and you just take your scissors and light trim every 3-4 weeks, so you'll get your harvest. And so that's, and then more with that, going forward, let's see what else I got. Oh yeah, here's some really good varieties. I found all of them. So this is some really good lettuce called Farmer's Market Mix. I love this because it has a mix of different types of oak leaf and red sales leaf lettuces. That's a good one. So your Farmer's Market Mix. The baby lettuce heirloom cutting mix is a good one. And let's see what else, because I mixed them up with some of the flowers I pulled aside. Oh, this I love. This is one of my favorite lettuces. This is a baby oak leaf. I love oak leaf because oak leaf has a good flavor, and it's just a really good lettuce. So love oak leaf. You have some more of the baby pak choy. This is called Green Jewel. This is a good one. This is by Renee Shepherd Seeds. Good one. My favorite thing to do right now, shifting gears now, going more into the herbs. So you can plant all your herbs right now. So the only herbs that are going to start winding down in October are basil and dill. So basil, if you have basil, cut them back right now and let them flush again before they start slowing down, because as we get colder and damper, they're not going to grow anymore. So they're going to be done soon, but you can still plant all your other like herbs. Like this is actually a perennial basil called African Blue. The reason why I plant this is I put it in my garden for the bees. It's a very important pollen producer for the bees. So I do that. And then here's the sweet basil. But again, this is going to start finishing soon. You can even see a little discolor in the leaf because it's not liking the damper nights. So that's harvest it, cut it, but you can still plant all of your sage, your cooking sage. This is the narrow leaf Salvia officinalis. That's a good one. Parsley. So you can still do all your perennial herbs. And so this is one of my favorite. I put these on pizzas a lot. So Mexican oregano. So I love using this. This is such a good oregano. What I do is, let me set this down. I take the stem and then I just pull and I strip it, and then I'll take these and put this on my pizza. So one of my favorite oreganos. Love that oregano. And you got the taller parsley is like your Italian giant leaf. You can do your English thyme, French thyme is good. Your mint's still okay right now. It's going to slow down a lot when we get cold, but don't put mint in the ground. Put mint in containers because it will take over your garden. You can do some of the little lavenders, like the little tiny English lavenders are good. If you guys make tea, the Roman chamomile, the chamomile is good. And all your chives and all that stuff. Another one that I do a lot from seeds, you can start planting your arugula. So the arugula is going to start coming in now. So one of my favorite arugulas that I find that doesn't bolt as quick is it's a variety called Astro. So watch for Astro when you go into the nursery. And another one that's my favorite, just make sure I pull, oh yeah, I pulled the wrong thing. This is celery. I thought it was cilantro. It's not. But with cilantro, now is the time to plant it. And I definitely plant the seeds of it because as we cool off cilantro, if you plant it right now, it will go through November, December, January, February, and then March I take it out and plant more. Cilantro doesn't like it when it's hotter, 75, 80 degrees, it's just gonna bolt. So in the wintertime, your cilantro is gonna be a lot better. So plant your cilantro. And that's really the main thing with the herbs. Talk about strawberries really quick. Strawberries are gonna start winding down. They're producing a lot of runners, but what I always do, I don't let these runners grow because I want the plant to build energy for next year. So when you see these long runners, they're trying to produce more plants. I just take my pruners and just cut the runners all the way to the crown because then it's not taking energy away from the plant. And then even some of these old leaves, I'll cut out these older leaves and clean it up a little bit. And sometimes if we get really cold, I'll cut the strawberries all the way back and let them restart, especially if I see a lot of fungal problems on the leaves, because strawberries get stronger and stronger every year when you keep them in the ground because they are a perennial. And in your home garden, you don't have to worry as much about the fungal problems because you're not growing, 4 to 5 acres of strawberries. So definitely feed them. Let them rest. They'll come back out next year really strong, but don't pull them out. If you have strawberries that are, 3 to 5 years old, this is the time of year you want to clean them up and divide them and replant them, but you don't have to pull them out and start with new ones. Each year they'll get better and better. I've seen strawberries, their 3rd year, produce enormous. So keep your strawberries in, and then when you go to plant more of them, watch in spring when we get like all the everbearing types. But right now I don't really plant that many of them because they're going to start slowing down. But in the spring, watch for Seascape and Chandler and Albion and all the good everbearing types. So that's with those. Moving on, now we're going into the flowers. And then I'll probably talk about bulbs and then we'll go into some perennials and I'll touch a little bit on seed starting. But now I'm really talking with the winter annuals. So now that we're really going out of summer and we're going to start finishing off some of the summer annuals, now we're going into the fall winter annuals. So right now in the next few weeks you're going to see a lot of the pansies and violas, and let me hold some of them up. So you have the pansies are going to start coming in, all the giant mixes, and then the little violas. And now they actually don't get that tall. Pansies will stay pretty little. The main thing with pansies is you want to loosen out the soil so it drains, and don't plant them deep. Let me take this out of the container. I'll show you guys. You see, sometimes what I do is I don't want to make a mess, but I'm going to take some of the soil off a little bit. But you can see the crown. Always plant it a little higher. If you bury this deep, you're going to rot them out. So that's what people go wrong with pansies and violas. Plant them a tiny bit higher so it doesn't cover the stem and rot them. And you can plant them pretty close. You can put them about 6 to 8 inches apart. So they're good right now. And a lot of people don't know with pansies and violas, they're edible flowers. Some people actually eat these flowers, so they are edible. So those are good. You have a lot of the ornamental cabbages starting to come in. So ornamental cabbage is coming in. Ornamental kale is starting to come in. As we get colder, you'll usually get more white in the center. So the kale and the cabbage is coming in. That's a good one to plant right now. I don't crowd these. Usually when I plant these, I'll put them about 10, 12 inches apart. Give them a little bit more room because they get bigger. And those you can plant right now. They can do good in any soil. The pansies and violas want at least 6 to 8 hours of sun. Cabbage and kale that's ornamental can take half day sun, like 4 or 5 hours. So we're getting the stalk. The stalk is a good one. Stalk is very fragrant. So this is like the 7-week, the trisomic stalk, which is good. Now this one, very fragrant. So if you plant this near your door, you can mix this with the pansies. This is going to get taller. So put the pansies, violas in front, maybe an ornamental cabbage here and there, and these are going to get a little taller. So these are good. The stalk is good. Another one that's really good to plant right now for the show are the mums. So the mums are starting to come in. So mums are going to always bloom really strong in September and October. They'll slow down a little bit, but the one thing with mums is they'll always come back. This is more of a perennial, so always will come back strong. So that one, I brought up some snapdragons. I didn't have any little ones yet, but now the snapdragons are going to start coming in. This is great for height. And snapdragons will bloom now all the way into spring. So your tall snapdragons, this is one of the sonnets, which is a medium size, like 15 to 20 inches. I plant these pretty close because they tend to go up. So I can put these about 10 inches apart, you know. So I put them pretty close because they want to go up. So snaps you can plant right now. So that's with the snaps. There's some other stuff that I don't have yet, like calendulas. There's garden phlox, and there's a bunch of stuff that we'll start getting as we go into more into the fall. So I'll have those probably in the next few weeks. So that's with all the annuals. And another one, the alyssum. It's good for the winter time. You can plant your alyssum right now. Lobelia, I didn't bring any of it up because it's going to start slowing down, so I'm not planting it right now. So lobelia is done. A lot of the summer stuff is finished. So and that's with those. Now the next thing is bulbs. So this is the time of year when we start getting in our spring blooming bulbs. So I'll buy them right now because they're available, but I'll wait about 2-3 weeks to plant them. So let me go into some of the bulbs. Where can I set them? I'm just going to set them right here, and they should stay. I don't think they're going to fall. Thank you, Jen. Thank you. Yeah, that works because then it's not going to fall off the table. And so I always separate the bulbs into 2 categories. Some of the bulbs that we have, you'll have to pre-chill for 6 to 8 weeks so they bloom really good. Some of the other ones, you don't have to pre-chill. So the first ones I'm going to talk about are tulips, hyacinths, and some of the alliums that you'll need to chill for 6 to 8 weeks for them to bloom really good, because we don't get cold enough in our climate. So you have some white, long stem white tulips, and these you'll have to definitely chill in the refrigerator, and usually I put them in like the vegetable crisper. If you do put them in the vegetable crisper, keep them away from usually onions and apples, because it can actually get them to soften out more. And but yeah, you get a bag. I think there's like 8 of them in here. So there's 8. Now with a lot of the bigger bulbs like this, you're going to put them farther down. So you're going to let them chill for 6 to 8 weeks, put them in the garden, and basically trenches that are about 4 or 5 inches deep. You'll put those into the bottom and cover them up, and you'll see there's a little point. Always point, the point goes up. You'll see the bottom goes down. So that's important with tulips. Hyacinths are the same thing. You know, they're going to need to be chilled for 6 to 8 weeks. Now you can force these. If you force them, then you can put them in little containers and have them come up. Now hyacinths are very fragrant, but they need to be chilled. And again, with these, put them deeper. If you're putting them in a pot, you don't have to put them really deep, but hyacinths definitely need to be chilled. What else do I have in here? And then these are the little snowdrops, and these don't need to be chilled right here. The little leucogems. You can put these around a tree and they just naturalize, and they'll come up every year, more spring. So those you don't have to chill. And so with bulbs though, bulbs like really good drainage and really rich soil. So sometimes I'll take a bag of like the Harvest Supreme compost or the Malibu and worm castings. I'll work it in really good so then it's rich and it drains. So that's important for them. But some of my favorites, I like the low chill bulbs. I like to put stuff in the garden, let them naturalize, and then I don't have to replant them. So some of my favorites, I love the ranunculus. And so these are the little ranunculus, and ranunculus will come up every year in the spring. And these, since these bulbs are little, don't put them deep, maybe an inch deep. So I love the ranunculus. Ranunculus are good. All your different varieties of narcissus. So these are your daffodils. So your daffodils, nice bulbs, they just came in. This is a variety called Intrigue. Again, I'll put these about 3 to 4 inches deep, get the soil rich, and I always like to cluster the bulbs, because even with these, sometimes I do little pockets of like 4 or 5. And sometimes I'll do them between shrubs too, where I know everybody wants to do stuff in a row or in lines. I like to make it look more natural. So I'll put, 4 to 5 bulbs together, maybe plant them like 3 in the front and 2 in the back in little pockets. That's where you get some really cool interest, and it will look like it's natural, even around rocks. But love the daffodils and all the narcissus. Now's the time. You do have these that are like the little species tulips, and with these, they actually will naturalize in our climate, but they don't need to be chilled. So that's a really cool, and this is a variety called ballerina. So ballerina, and there's some other ones, but they're little tiny tulips, but they don't need to be chilled. They can actually naturalize, and they'll come up. You have some of the little tiny freesias. So all your freesias, and freesias are really fragrant, so you can bring them in the house. So freesias, don't put them that deep, put them about an inch deep, maybe about 3 inches apart. I like to put them in clusters, and again with these are really long. So remember, the point goes up and the flat part goes down. So it's important for the freesias. And then you go more into some of the other ones. I always like some of the South African bulbs. These are really cool. So this is Iphion, like they're a really cool little bulb, and they actually they don't need to be chilled. They'll naturalize really quick. Put them about an inch deep. They produce bulb that's really fast, so you can put a little group into 3 to 5 here, 3 to 5 here, and they multiply quick, so you don't have to plant a lot of them together. But this is a cool one, spring starflowers. Another one of my other favorites, I like the harlequin flower, Spraxis. Another little South African bulb. The bulbs are very little. They bloom really strong in the spring. They don't get really tall when they bloom, maybe 8 to 10 inches, but love the harlequin flower. Now, the bulbs are really little, so again, maybe an inch deep, not really deep. And so they'll come up and naturalize really quick, and you can put them in little groupings around your garden. So, and you have Dutch irises. The Dutch irises are coming in that are really nice. You have your paper whites. So paper whites are a variety of narcissus that most people bloom to have in their house for fragrance in the holidays. But one thing, when you're planting narcissus, you can put them in pots, you can put them in the ground, you can put them anything they'll grow. But you want to always try to plant them about 4 weeks before you want them to flower. So, so if you're planting them for November, for Thanksgiving, count back 4 to 5 weeks. You're putting them in for Christmas. Count back 4 or 5 weeks. And don't plant them really deep either. I just sort of push them in the soil, and sometimes I'll cover the neck, or sometimes I'll leave the neck a little higher. But the one thing with the trick with paper whites is water them even. Don't overwater them because you don't want to rot them out. And make sure they get a lot of sun. So if you force them in the house, they can come up really quick. Sometimes I like to grow them outside with the colder nights. They'll grow slower, make sure they're in sun. And then when you go closer into the holidays, bring them in the house. Because as we change our weather and we start turning up our heat inside, it's going to get these to grow really quick. So if you're forcing them in the house, sometimes I might plant them maybe 3 weeks before I want them to flower, because they'll grow fast in the house. But if they're in not enough sun, they'll want to lean and fall over. So if you get the long stalks and keep them tight, make sure they get the sun. So that's with the paper whites. And with if you guys haven't planted, on a side note, your garlic and your onion sets, get them in right now. I know we're supposed to get some, I think, next week. So now's the time for your garlic and your onion set. So get them in. We're supposed to get a shipment next week. And then with the Christmas, what am I thinking of? The bigger flowers. I'm forgetting what, not alstroemerias, but oh gosh, the amaryllis. The amaryllis. So amaryllis, See what happens when you start getting old, you forget things. But the Christmas amaryllis, we're gonna get them in a few weeks, so they won't come into more into like November, probably almost. Yeah, they should be in around November. So yeah, for the amaryllis, watch for them in November. Okay, so that's it with the bulbs. And now we're gonna talk a little bit about roses. Roses are gonna, as we get colder, they're gonna start winding down. This is the time of year, I'm gonna actually move some of this stuff and I'm gonna put the rose on the counter, because now's a good time to clean them up. I always will feed one last time right now. So this is a really one of my favorite whites. This is a Pope John Paul II. So he's gone through the heat, he's bloomed out. So I'm always going about 4 or 5 inches down and I'm light trimming. I love these little pruners. These are Felco 310s. They're florist pruners, but they have a stainless steel blade so they don't rust. So I'm just cutting pretty quick, but again, see how once this wasn't that bad. I probably shouldn't have cut this one, but even with this one, I'm cutting it down, and they always say cut down to 5 leaves. I just cut down like 3 to 4 inches. I'm not looking for every 5 leaves. So even when you turn it around, let me turn this around, I'll show you. I'll hold one out, I'll hold one out that's browning, and then I'll just cut it down. And then I'll clean it up a little bit, because it has some leaves on here. You can tell these leaves right here, let me pick some of them off. These aren't fungal, this is just was through the heat. So some of these that are sort of just calling them brown, they don't have a fungal on them, it just got too hot. See how the leaves turn like a bronzy brown color, where everybody always thinks it's rust. Rust happens when there's orange on the back of the leaf, but this just went through heat. So I'm actually gonna just take him down all the way because I just want to show you how the finished product. And then the side branches, I'll go through and clean them. And I really don't spray that much on roses this time of year for fungal, because with the damp nights, they're gonna get mildew, they're gonna get rust. I don't really worry about it because it's the dampness. So again, clipping down. I'm just sort of light pruning them too, because I will get probably another round of blooms in probably about 6 weeks. And after that, once we even cool off more, they'll slow down. But I do like to clean them up and take all the dead leaves out of the middle. And I do like to feed them one last time, because I don't feed them in November. And sometimes if the roses, I usually will give them a tiny bit of Epsom salts, and then I won't feed them again until almost February. So that's my next. So I want to let them rest. And when I'm pruning them, pruning them farther back will be January. But now I'm just cleaning them up, getting them ready. They went through a hot summer, getting them ready for a little fall bloom, and then after that they'll slow down. So that's with roses. It's really a good time of year to plant them though, even though we're winding down on them a little bit. Roses like to be planted in the fall because they root really good. So if you come in and watch for any of the roses I have, snatch them up even if they're on discount, because roses love it when we cool down at night. They root really good. And that's one thing that I always look at, even jumping into the next thing with fruit trees. I didn't bring a lot of fruit trees up. This is a good time of year to actually, if I have any peaches, plums, nectarines left, buy them. Buy them even if they look horrible and they yellow leaves, because again, they're going to produce a lot of roots during the winter, but not a lot of growth. Their new growth will flush next spring. Even citrus, like I brought up a Meyer lemon, and even though I know a lot of people are gonna hassle me on this, and they say, oh, you can't plant some of the subtropicals, it's not good. Well, we were so hot a few weeks ago, it was too hot. I'm gonna put, I have a Meyer lemon, which is one of my favorite lemons. I have a Bear's lime at home, and I'm planting them probably in the next 2 weeks. I'm gonna break up the soil and put my compost in there, and then I will go through and start planting once we're cooler, because then they'll establish better. And let me talk a little bit about perennials too. Perennials right now, some of the salvias are going to be light clipping them back. I don't hard prune them. Some of the geraniums, the perennial Cranesville geraniums, are going to be cutting them back. I brought a few of them up just to show you. It's a really good time of year to start putting some of your perennials in the ground. This is pentas. You have Callilophus and echinaceas, and yeah, they're gonna go dormant in the next like probably 3 to 4 weeks, but if I get them in now, they're gonna get the roots. They're gonna come out strong next year. And here's one of my favorite varieties of geraniums. It's an English type called Roseanne. And see, when they get really lanky, what I'll even do, and this seems pretty brutal, I'll cut them all the way back. Cut them way back, because I'm getting rid of all this. All these flowers are done, and it went through a hot summer, so they're real scraggly. So, but now, when you look close, I'll show you. I'm gonna clean out some of this dead, and I'll take another one off. You have that crown. Now they're gonna come all from these islets, so they'll start flushing through the winter, and they'll be nice and fresh for when you go into spring. And another thing with lavenders, I didn't touch on that much, but lavenders I'll even trim back too. So when the lavenders get the long flowers and they're done, I'll trim into the new growth by 1 inch and I'll round them. And I do that in late October, and sometimes I do it again in February, because I want to keep the lavender a little compact so it doesn't stretch and get really leggy. So yeah, your Roseanne geranium, cut it back, because look at those nice green shoots. That's going to flush all brand new growth. So that's okay to do. And then even these pentas, another one that I'll light trim back. Salvias I'll light trim back. Echinaceas, the coneflowers I'll light trim back. And so you're just getting them ready for, they're going to start slowing down, but great to plant right now. They're going to root really good. And what else? Oh yeah, let me go grab a blueberry. I know I'm going to block the camera. Sorry guys. So blueberries are good to plant right now. So this is, I think this one is Bountiful Blue, one of my favorites. This has a lot of new growth on it, so I won't prune it back right now. Some blueberries, you'll get another crop off them. You get another crop and they get really lanky, that's when you cut them back. This is all new and it's young, so I won't, but sometimes I do like to feed them a little acid fertilizer, like the down, I didn't bring it up here though, the down to earth makes good acid fertilizer. Definitely feed it little coffee grounds to keep it acidic. That's good. Put in right now. Even some of the blackberries, like the arc, I'll plant them right now if I can get a hold of them, because they're going to root good. Some of the berries, like blackberries, they actually do better in the ground. Olali berries and some of those, and boysenberries, they do better in the ground. I found that sometimes with the blueberries, they do better in containers. They want better drainage. So that's another tip with that. And so what else? But you can really plant everything right now. So when you get into all of your ornamental grasses, all your perennials, even your drought tolerant stuff, October is really the month you want to plant before we go into November and start really cooling down. So that's a tip. And even if you go into the problems with the caterpillars, the spinosad is a really good one. I'm a real tool guy, so I love tools, and so I love these little, this is one of my favorite tools. This is a weeder called a hula hoe, and they make them giant, they make them tall, but one thing I love about this is it has an oscillating head, and I can get in there and work the fertilizer in, but then I can rake it flat. So if I'm gonna feed the roses again and I don't want to get all scratched up with thorns, I love this tool. So when I spread the fertilizer around, I can literally light, and I don't want to go deep because I don't want to hit any roots with this, but I'm just lightly working it in, can turn it back over and level it. So good little tool for that. Another one of my favorite tools, I love the little hand rakes. These little hand rakes, again, like working in the fertilizer like this, scratching it in. Always clean away the leaves before you fertilize, because you want to get these organic fertilizers have to be lightly mixed in the soil for them to break down. Then you can flatten them out. I love stainless. Another thing that I'll tell you, I do like stainless steel tools. They don't rust. So good little garden trowel for digging. Good stainless steel little rake. So that's a good one with that. Another thing I'll touch on before because we're almost finished, when starting seeds. So if you guys are starting any seeds, let me get the ones that I start a lot of my own seeds, right? So I'll start my Romanesco broccoli. I'm gonna start that from seed right now. My amazing cauliflower, seed right now. My celery right now. I'll just use more of a sterilized seed mix. Malibu's putting out a good seed mix. So I'll use this, and when I get little plug trays, and I'll line the plug trays, and I'll put 1 to 2 seeds in each one and water it really good. The trick with seeds, keep them watered about 2-3 times a week until they come up. Once they germinate, then you'll back off to once a week. And with these little seeds, I make a little hole in my pencil. I don't think I brought, I didn't bring my pen, but a pen or a pencil, and just make it like a 1/16 of an inch deep, the hole in the middle. So don't go deep with these seeds because they're very little and they won't germinate, they'll rot before they germinate. So that's important with starting seeds. And then once they're about 4 weeks old, they'll go out in the garden. But I always watch for, when I do put any of these seedlings out and any of that stuff out, I watch for the snails, because the snails are going to start coming out, and if the snails get bad, I use Sluggo. Sluggo is a really good one for the snails. This is just iron phosphate. It's toxic to the snails and slugs, but not to your dogs, not to cats, because it's not a methaldehyde base. Some of the other companies I won't use anymore because methaldehyde based baits are some of the most toxic for your pets, because they might bind it with molasses and they'll go after them and try to eat it off the ground. So Sluggo is safer because it's an iron, but it's fine in your vegetable garden, it's fine around your citrus, it's just going to break down into iron. So that's an important one if you have a problem with snails or slugs. And it's little pellets, so I just sprinkle it around the plants, and as it breaks down, they'll eat it, they'll cross it, and very good to use for snails and slugs. Another one that I like on a side note is, this is my favorite for the aphids. So if aphids start showing up again, I love the Safer soap. So favorite thing for aphids. Another one of my favorites that I think we were out of last time, I didn't get to talk too much. I'm knocking stuff over, man. Look out, look out. This water nozzle is one of my favorites. Can I take it out of the package? No, I can. So this you hook to your hose, and it has 1,000 holes, and then I put it on one of the brass like shutoffs, and that way I can just water my garden. But it's a very soft way of watering the garden, and I always do that when I start my seedlings, because I can water the garden, water my seedlings with this, and I'm not washing them away. So the Dram 1,000 hole water breaker, that's a good one. And that's about it for today. Thank you for joining me, you guys. And we're going to take the questions now. So if you guys have any questions, now's the time.
All right. One of the questions for the bulbs, do they all need full sun, and how many hours?
Yeah, they do. She's asking, do the bulbs need full sun? All the ones, yeah, they do. They need at least 6 to 8 hours of sun. You'll find that sometimes crocus and the leucogems can take a little bit of shade, but what happens is when you look at sun exposure and direct full sun warms up the soil and sun gets them to come up. If it's in a shady area, you might get some to come up, they might not come up as quick, and so you'll get really mixed results. That's why when I do the bulbs, I'm always going to put them in full sun. All bulbs, spring bulbs, summer bulbs, anything, even garlic and onions. I'll tell you, in my own garden, I live near a high school and they put a 9-foot wall in. And last year I went and I put my garlic in there, and it gets about 4 hours of sun. It came up fine, it grew fine, but it didn't bulb up. So I got one little tiny bulb per plant because I didn't have direct 6 to 8 hours. So that's important with bulbs, full sun.
Do you cut back lantana? Mine are in full bloom.
Yeah, so she's asking, do you trim back lantana? I do, but I wait until more into like January or February. Because if I cut them back now, they're not going to do anything. With some perennials, I will wait a little longer, maybe usually like about January, February, I'll light clip them back. The ground cover ones. The shrubs, I'll just light trim right now. So.
2 more. When is a good time to prune and fertilize nectarine trees?
Well, right now, you're going to clean them up. So they're asking when to fertilize and prune nectarines. I'll prune them in January, mid-January, and I'll feed them in February. So I don't do anything with stone fruits right now. I just let them go dormant. They're going to start turning, the leaves are going to start turning yellow, they're going to drop. But what I do, and you might come in and talk to me, when I prune stone fruits, this is a big thing. Don't shape them, because you're going to take all that new growth that they're gonna fruit off. So what I do is I'll take suckers that are coming from the bottom. There's water sprouts that go straight up through the middle of the tree. I'll take those off. Any crossing branches, I tend to open them up more, but I don't shape them. And that's with peaches, nectarines, plums, and apricots. But that's pruning in mid-January, feeding in February, and don't shape them, thin them. It's called lacing, that's what we call it. But if you have any questions, I've pruned fruit trees for years, and I'll show you, okay?
And the last one, what do you put in dirt to prepare for the fall vegetable planting?
See, I didn't talk about that. I sort of skipped. I'm gonna get some hate mail on this one, but I skipped over it. What I always do, I'm gonna lift the bags up here so you see the bags, because you're not gonna be able to see them on the ground. And so what I do, and I'm gonna put my phone down. Let's just move some of the stuff off this table. So my trick with preparing the vegetable garden, I do this every year. I'm getting ready to rip out all my peppers, and my tomatoes are gone. I want to get that soil really rich for my fall crops and for my summer crops of next year. So I'm gonna put about 3 bags on the table. I'm gonna put this one, and hopefully it doesn't fall over.
Do you want me to hold it?
Yeah, you might have to hold it, because I don't wanna. So let's see if you can see over me. So these are my 2 favorites. So this one I'll use. It's very high in chicken manure, and it comes off sort of hot, but it's one of the better composts I've been using to help retain water, because we've been in a drought. So I do use this into the garden, and then I blend it with the worm castings. So this bag's heavy right here, so let me just hold it up in front. So I like to blend it with the worm castings, and I usually, if the soil is really dry, I don't work it really deep. Then I come back with a Malibu compost, and the Malibu is going to be top dressed on the surface. So the Harvest Supreme and the worm castings are going to be worked in, scratched in about 8 to 10 inches. Malibu is your better compost, and the biggest thing with Malibu, this has no wood in it. So this can be sort of higher in wood, but I do like the chicken manure for the nitrogen. This is just rich. So when I go through, this is gonna get the soil really active. Because again, you have a lot of worm castings in that, but mainly compost, a little bit of steer manure and worm castings, but more worm castings, more chicken manure compost, Malibu on the surface worked in. Okay? Okay, guys. Thank you for joining me. David Rizzo signing off, and I'll be back next month. And if you guys have any questions, call me, come in. I'll show you planting, show you what we have in stock. And yeah, you guys have a great day, and bye-bye.